Welcome back, guys. So let's go over the heat shield here that I come up with for the 2024 and up RZR XP1000. So tried a lot of different products. My end goal was to try to keep this machine as close to the outside ambient air temperature in the cab and with the full windshield always left on. So we tried different products, we tried different ways of getting heat shields in there. But after reaching out to heat shield products here, we come up with the sticky shield as our option. And that comes through Summit Racing. They stock heat shield products. So we ended up ordering this part number here. It was a 23-inch by 24-inch size piece of this heat shield. So the reason why we chose this heat shield was because it's got a strong foil front. It's got a tightly woven insulation, fiberglass insulation on the back with a sticky backing on here. So this sticky back, guys, you'll take a razor blade and you'll make a little slit and come up underneath and pull it off so that the sticky back stays on the insulation. It doesn't come off with this paper. They have installation videos out on this stuff too. So this gives us the thermal break and the reflective, the radiant heat break that we needed on that firewall. This foil tape comes with it for doing any seams. So yeah, 120 bucks. So a lot of this product that actually has good quality like this. They're not layered so they come apart. It's actually a woven together so it stays solid. These products are all gonna run quite a bit of money. If you get a $20 piece or a $40 piece, you know, it's just gonna have a really thin front on it, and the backing is gonna be a different material. It isn't gonna be actual insulation fiberglass. So the ratings are gonna go way down on it. So I also, you wouldn't have to, but I ordered a little bit of their Thermoflect tape. So that's the part number there. It's ended up being a 4-inch by 10-foot roll. So it's way more than you ended up needing, but it's not just a foil tape, guys. It has a fiberglass layer in there for a thermal break, and it's got a strong fiberglass front and a really sticky back to it. So we ended up, we took the shock and the tire off the machine. We jack it up here so you have easy access to get into here to put this in on the firewall. So this is our final deflector plate. So this makes all the difference in the world here, guys. This could go on any machine, really. The idea would work for all these machines with the radiator up front. You know, this hot air, it's pushing off the firewall. And you would think this hot air is all rising up and staying away, but it just forces down in, you know, where the drive shaft is and these radiator lines. It just forces in down below on the floorboards of these machines. And that's where a lot of your heat's actually coming from. It rises up through all those openings. So we tried different deflectors. We had one in here that rode down on this bar, right? So we got a negative behind it yet, and the heat would just kind of wrap around the sides. It was very effective, but not near as effective as this divider here. So it starts up here in front, the width of the radiator, and it comes all the way back here to the edge of the, where the wheel well starts. This is given that air. It comes back here, gets squeezed in here, and it gets pushed out the sides instead of being able to be pushed down underneath the floor. So what we did there, guys, was we made this template for that. So I have the measurements on here if you guys want to use that as a reference. But if you just take a little tape measure in there, it's pretty easy to come up with those measurements and stuff too. You guys can make this opening as big as you need to, so you don't crowd those lines. I made mine pretty tight to the lines, but I sanded these edges nice and round, and I'll keep my eye on it to make sure we're not affecting those radiator lines at all. But you guys can make your area as big as you need to, or put something around the radiator lines if you want. These little tabs up here are cut so you can pin that onto that bar, both sides. But this is a 2-piece. So this side here you'd put in first, and then you put this side on, and it gets riveted together here. So we drill the holes on the one piece. We put this piece in, then you mark them on the next piece and drill those holes, and then put these little push rivets in there to hold the 2 pieces together at the seam. So all the measurements are on there for reference, but it's almost just easy just to pull the measurements off the machine and template it down on cardboard that way too. But this is a good reference, these numbers. Okay, so this is the material I chose. You can get this online or you can get it at Menards. So it was about the right thickness, plastic. It's got a little textured side over here, but it ended up being nice and thin so we could get it up underneath that radiator. And it cuts really well with a piece of, or some snips here. So this here, you're able to make these cuts in these pieces of plastic with a good snips or a real heavy scissors even. So this is the Thermoflex tape. It's got a good stick back to it and that insulation layer in there. Here's the sticky shield. I ended up putting some of this silicone around the edge when I was done, just to seal that edge up. But here it is stuck on there, guys. You can see all the layers. Gives it a good thermal break area, and it sticks on there pretty good. You can see all the layers. It holds together. Some of those other materials, when I was watching videos on them and stuff, the layers weren't fused together like that. So it's on there really good. Sticks to that plastic after you clean everything up with alcohol, and go around it with this silicone here. This is the silicone I end up using. So it stays nice and clean and shiny. It doesn't turn kind of a white and start flaking off like the other silicone I've been using. So this stays nice and shiny, even when you wash the machine, and it comes back clean like this. Okay, so up top, I'll show you guys on the machine. So it's hard to get all this stuff insulated, but the heat's up there under the hood, and it's just heating that firewall up there. And that radiant heat inside the cab just starts working down by your feet. So this stuff here, we ended up using the great stuff. So I tried the DAP stuff and some other brands, and they wouldn't build as thick as this, as nice, like in a spray, as the great stuff here. So this is the one I ended up going with, multi-purpose black. And you can just break that little end off of this tube and you can reuse it again. So this one can here still has some in it, and I did that whole top side. And I didn't want to spray anything up in there in case you got to take this stuff back apart. But after I tested it on some different plastics and stuff, this stuff you can get in there and you can peel this stuff off pretty good. So for most of that plastic, you're gonna peel it off later. And this can was $11, so you can just put it back in if you ever have to go into any of this stuff. Or like the top hood panel will just come off and that foam will sit underneath there. And you put the hood back on, hood panel back on, it'll be just fine there. So I ended up, after testing this stuff, I ended up going ahead and spraying that area up there. That's just hard to insulate. And that's like 2 inches thick now, and it makes a really good insulated layer. It took care of that last little spot I was trying to get with this here. Okay, so remove the shock, a couple bolts there. Take that tire off. Gives you easy access in here, guys. So Heat Shield Products just says to template this out of their cardboard. And the box this stuff comes in was enough cardboard actually just to make this template. So I just started on a straight ledge over there with the tape measure and measured across on my own here to like this point. Took some measurements and I started cutting it out of the cardboard, and it went pretty fast. So I ended up going around these areas, just making an opening and then sealing them after I pushed it against the firewall tight. I went around those lines up there. I put the foil really tight to the lines, about a 1/2 inch around them. That way it insulates that rubber plug going through that firewall. So this top piece is a separate piece. And then these other pieces are just separate pieces I filled in here. This side piece here is a separate piece. I just took a tape measure and measured it out, made a cardboard template, and then traced it on the sticky shield. Cut it out with a scissors. A decent scissors cuts this sticky shield really nice. So this went really fast, actually. I probably have start to finish 2 hours to get the sticky shield on and seal around it. And then I had to design this, but this probably took me, after I had my cardboard templates figured out on the distance here, this was maybe another couple hours here for this deflector shield. So you can see it rivets on there. There's a spot on the frame. And I put that little rivet back in over there on that tab. And it comes back here, lays up against the firewall, and I use some of that heat shield tape to seam this area together in here. So the brake line kind of comes through like this. So I made a smaller hole here, and I put the brake line holder on there. You can see it seamed together. The push pins are in there. I ended up putting 2 in the front. Just overlap it, have holes in one side of it, and then just when it lays in there, when you have it where you want it, just mark the other holes out. There's another one back in here. It's underneath the tape, but I seamed that together and put rivet in back in there too. The brake line just kind of shoots through that opening along with that vent tube. This here, I'm gonna watch this area here, guys. It looks like it's fine. It's been fine over the last maybe 150 miles. But you can leave more gap here and then silicone it, or just leave a little more gap around the whole spot. It's not that critical, but definitely some heat's gonna be pushing down in through there. So yeah, got the reflective tape in there. So it went down about 1 foot just to the bottom here. Wanted to get this area where your foot rests inside. So I went around these lines a little bit in here. I just popped this front part of this floor pan down a little bit. Gave me an access area in here to put this tape in here. Cleaned all this stuff good with, you can use a hot garden hose, some soap. When it all dries, use a little alcohol or cleaning agent on this stuff before you go to stick it all in here. But yeah, up front here, so part of the thing here was to find a nice spot to rest this deflector plate where I wasn't gonna affect anything, you know. So I made a little notch in here for this event line that comes up from the diff. Cut a little slit up front, made a hole so that line still runs up here, attaches on the frame. So to get the front of my deflector in here, you can see I ran it a little ways past these radiator insulators here. So the radiator mounts to this plastic where the fan is. And then it's held down here on these metal tabs. So up top here, take the panel off. So you can see up here, so the radiator just sits in these little tabs up top. So I took these bolts out here, and then I reached around the side here, grabbed the radiator with both hands, and pulled this up, and that just spaces this area up when you lift up on the radiator. So I lifted it from both sides, lifted this thing up so that those tabs come out of the holes. And then I just set it up front here. And then I was able to lift the side of the radiator up just enough to get this plastic underneath there, and then set the radiator back down in this tab. So that gives a nice area, and it's under the rubber yet, and it still goes plenty far into the metal, and the top bolted back down really nice. So the radiator is still sitting down here now on top of this plastic on the rubber, and it gave me a nice spot here to mount this deflector in here. And the deflector made all the difference in the world. So the first one helped a lot, but this is the final design here now to deflect and trap this heat up into here and shoot it out the sides. Okay, so the spray foam, if you guys don't put the foam in these edges here, you guys could use the foam in here and then just cut it nice and flat. Once you cut it, it's gonna be a little coarse, so you could just take a glove with some more on it, and then you'll get that shiny surface here. So once you cut it back or trim it, you just take a little on your rubber glove and you can wipe it back over top, and it makes this nice, smooth, shiny surface here. So this is where I didn't know what to put up in here. So I did the grate stuff just because it's there's so many voids in here, but I wanted this whole area up in this heat to be insulated. Back in these corners, it's just a tough spot. So I wanted this to separate from the hood panel, and it does. It pulls it away nice. So you guys could pull this down away and take that hood panel off yet. Or you could pull this foam all out of here if you needed to gain access, and just spray foam the area back in when you're done. So the foam is great from the inside. This machine can run for an hour, and I can reach my hand up inside there, and that plastic's nice and cool, or whatever temperature it is inside the cab, of course. But yeah, you used to put your hand on there and it was over like probably 140 degrees or more. Or with the heat gun, you could see it was 140 to 150 degrees, and now it's 75, 80, 90 degrees up here right behind this heat shield. So this definitely does the trick. There's a lot of stuff online where they're doing heat gun testing and stuff, but here, you know, you got 180 degree water temp or a little warmer, but the air in here ends up being around 130, 40. So this is just completely overkill here, this heat shield, but it's a good quality, and it's worthy of being on this area of this machine. So it gives us this strong foil front too. So to template further, let's go up here. I put a little bit of the sticky shield on here, and then when you come up from the bottom there, you'll see all the way up in there. Well, there's a little pocket behind this area, a little spot in there. So I put the spray foam in that little void too. So I filled up this area in here, and I came down leaving these drains open, but I spray foamed this whole thing. You guys can cut this or trim it, you know, a little nicer, but I just didn't see the need for now, I guess. So we have this drain area here from the hood. So any water in this trough yet can still leave these areas open so they can still drain through. But that's about all I did up here, is just come up below the openings here for the hot air. Okay, I put the screws back in, and everything, radiator sits in here really nice. Just lifted it up that 1/8 inch, I guess. Over here too, I just made this as a separate little template. Then I just made these little holes and pushed it over there and silicone around that. Here I just come up in here, wrap around that edge. There's a little more I could put in there, but it was just, I was amazed by what this did. I just don't see a need for anything else in here. This insulation, that was the trick. Getting this whole area in there sealed up. Don't let the heat push down in this fender. It just goes down to the floorboard, and it warms all this area up in this dash and this opening, and it warms that whole side panel up. Okay, so we'll go over here just a little more about templating, and then that's pretty much it, guys. There's a lot of stuff out there for products and stuff you guys can use, but I wanted to take care of this problem and be done with it, and to have the best possible outcome. So this is the path I chose. This templating, it looks difficult here, but this is the cardboard that the heat shield products come in. So I just took a scissors and started measuring stuff off an edge, and it went pretty fast. It actually took me more time to make all these little measurements on here for you guys than it did just to cut this out and test it on the machine before I cut it out of the sticky shield. So you can see there is for some reference. So like this here, this is this back firewall piece in here. So you make these slits in here and that'll go over the wires. The sticky shield you can fold back. It pretty much slips all the way across, and then you lift it up and stick it on. Here's the little cutout areas for around these little protrusions here. Okay, this piece here, this goes up top in here. So this slipped in up top here. Okay. And then that cut here folds up in there really nice. And maybe a little piece in this corner, you'll have to cut a piece, put it in there, and put a little of that seam tape on there. But then of course that seam tape covers all the areas where you had to make a cut. Make a few extra pieces here, guys, and just use the seam tape. But these are ultimately the two pieces for the sticky shield, and this is that one on the driver's side up there. Here's that deflector plate again, if you guys want some measurement references. Here's your radiator mounting spots. This overlaps. So it overlaps where these holes are, and it lays in there just like this. 5/16 hole here. Might have to open that hole up a little bit on the machine. This here is the right size on the machine for that wire holder. This is for that vent line. 5/8 hole there, and then just make a little slot for the rubber tube to go in. You guys will find what works best for you. But this here is a key measurement, this 13 1/4. That's the total length there to get out up underneath that radiator. And full length side to side from this corner to right there. 11 3/4, and here it's 9 3/4. Okay guys, you can use this as a reference, but it's pretty easy to template now that you got the idea of it here. Okay, so some spray foam, little silicone, or you could use a polyurethane, a black polyurethane around the edges, or find what works best for you. Piece of this plastic, this was 24 by 36 inch. And you're gonna need an insulator, a heat shield product to put on that firewall. So with this fix, guys, it doesn't allow heat. Some of my other heat shields here, when they come down onto here and come up and seal up into here, I try to bring air in from the front behind here against the firewall. And when you move fast enough, that air does come back here, and that air is an air gap for insulating this firewall. And the hot air would come and hit my first shield here and want to come off the sides when you're moving. But when you're sitting still or when you're moving slow, the heat rises up around all these other areas, and it heats this firewall area up and underneath this hood yet, and it comes behind the negative. So you're creating another wall, another negative area where the heat would just pull behind and it would sit back in here. Once you go fast enough, the airflow would move the heat out. But you know, most of those days you're not moving that fast. Some days you're on the slow trails and it's hot out. So this heat now can't penetrate the firewall. And when the fan kicks in, it's blowing that heat out these sides. So it's a true insulator here for this firewall now. And we're keeping fresh air now from the front of the machine as we're driving. It's being able to push it up underneath the floor and separate out that heat. Okay guys, that's probably enough on this heat shield in here. you have any more questions, you could just message me, but you guys will find what works for you. This is what ended up working best for me. It was the ultimate solution to the problem. And it works good. Thanks, guys.